presented by RotoWire. Here to talk UFC Copenhagen. Main event, I think it's a good one. Chris may disagree, but it is Jack the Joker Hermansson taking on Jared the Killer Gorilla Cannonier, and a stunning co-main event in Danilo Belluardo taking on Marc Madsen. Holy crap, it's one of the worst co-main events I've ever seen.
People's co-main.
Holy crap. The third fight on this card, actually, the second fight on this card should be the co-main probably.
Yeah.
But we will get to that later. Here to talk everything UFC Copenhagen for DraftKings. I am your host, the Daily Fantasy Sniper, co-host, analyst, the important guys. I'm just here to be funny and maybe even look cute. It is Chris Olsen. You can find him on Twitter at @RealChrisOlsen. And Joe, who is at Sun Tzu. I'm at the DF Sniper. Guys, what's up? You ready for this 11 a.m. Eastern start on Saturday?
That is the only thing that's, in my eyes, making this card above average is the fact that it's 11 a.m. and we have our nights free, which is kind of important when you have all these MMA slates in a row.
It's kind of bullshit when I have a kid. I mean, I'm not going to be able to watch this card. I'll be at the Bronx Zoo tomorrow. It is what it is. I'm going to, I'll have it recorded and, I'm sure I'll be able to find it somewhere. And
isn't Monday a holiday? Can't you go to the zoo on Monday?
Monday and Tuesday, but I have other obligations on the
you are observant. Okay.
Plus Saturday at the Bronx Zoo for anyone in the area. It is Boo at the Zoo, which is Halloween themed, and they're gonna have a beer garden. So it'll be a good day tomorrow.
Yeah, I missed that memo.
So maybe in all seriousness, by the time we get home and she's in for a nap, I could catch the main event live, which would be great. I have plenty of time with the co-main event being such crap. But anyway, Chris, you looking forward to this card?
I'm looking forward to the card. I just think it goes in reverse order a little bit. I mean,
yeah.
I some of the most intriguing fights are lower down. Like, I mean, the main event, I guess, is fine. Although, like, I understand that, like, main events out of the United States are sometimes different kind of fighters because they want to get that fan base, and that's fine. But I just don't get, like, Jack Hermansson gets this huge win over Jacare, and now he fights Jared Cannonier.
He was desperate to fight on this card. There were other rumored fights for this card, and just nothing. Like Weidman, Gastelum, I think, were the two that jump out to me. Maybe not Weidman, but definitely Gastelum and somebody else up in the top 5. Didn't work out. He desperately wanted to fight on this card. Cannonier steps up, and man.
Yeah, no, I mean, hey, look, good for it. That's what this sport's about. Take your opportunities where you can get them. Not criticizing him. I just don't think that from a fan perspective, it's all that exciting or potentially even that interesting. But we'll get to it, I guess.
Sorry, I'm talking in chat, which you, by the way, if you're listening after the fact, should join us Fridays at 8 o'clock on the RotoWire YouTube page. Also, subscribe to the podcast after the fact, RotoWire MMA on all your podcast platforms. I think I just did also got to shout out RotoWire all the way. Go to rotowire.com/free for a 10-day free trial to all their premium content. No credit card required. I think that's enough of the intro. Let's get into these fights. We start off with, I'm a little scared, guys, because 11 a.m., as I mentioned, I'll be at the zoo, and I'm going to have a lot on this fight. Like, my day could be done before I eat lunch. Jack Shore at 8,900, taking on Nohelin Hernandez at 7,300. Jack Shore minus 165. Come back on Nohelin Hernandez plus 155. Chris, I'm not going to tell you which way I'm going, so I'll let your initial breakdown determine whether I'm going to be dead or not. What do you got?
Jack Shore kind of worries me a little bit. The reason I say that is because
he does. Of course he does.
Well, not to be the bearer of bad news here, Sean, but I just, we've seen him get controlled against the fence a little bit too much for my liking. I
think how does that apply here?
It applies because Nohelin Hernandez, we have seen him wrestle. We did see him wrestle in that fight he wrestled in the fight against Vera.
If he's going to try and wrestle, he's going to die.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying that clinches are not out of the realm of possibility. The other thing I would say is that Jack Shore not that much of a striker. I mean, he can throw his little 1-2s or whatever, doesn't have that much power. He really has to get this fight to the ground if that's where he wants to keep it. And Hernandez is, a good rangy kickboxer. And we saw him firing some good kicks. I love his combination work. I think that he goes to the body really well. So, I mean, it's an interesting fight to me. Obviously, if Shorty gets this to the ground in top position, he's going to do work. He's good in transition, and he's shown himself to be heavy on top. But I don't know. There's something about him that makes me feel like he won't be able to as readily take over fights at this level as he has been. And that's just speculation on my part, just based on a number of different things. But I just don't see him as somebody who takes over fights at this level. I think I'm going to go ahead and pick Hernandez just because I
want some money on this?
I want to finish my pick first. But
you already gave it.
Well, my summation, if you would. I just like Nohelin Hernandez to keep the range. I think that he's good. Look, we haven't really seen him. We haven't really seen him get taken down at will. And I just think Jack Shore. I mean, the other thing about Shore that I'm glad that you stopped me so I could have a time to collect here is that he doesn't always look for wrestling opportunities. A lot of his wrestling opportunities come when his opponents tie up with him. He seems pretty comfortable standing in space, which is a worry here. And for all those reasons, I'm gonna pick Noel Hernandez. But as I said, if Shore gets this fight to the ground, that's his world.
Yeah. Before I throw it to Joe, my issues with what you just said. I don't think Noel Hernandez is a good kickboxer. I think he's a good boxer. And yeah, sure, maybe not be able to take over fights in the UFC level. Nohelin Hernandez, not UFC level. That's where I
don't know. He was given Vera a run for his money there.
Well, everybody gives Vera trouble the first 90 seconds or even the first round. Everybody, sorry. Joe, talk some sense into him or just.
I don't know if he can. I'm kind of in shock. I mean, Jack Shore is the Cage Warrior champ, a good promotion in the UK. He's only 24 years old. He's had 23 MMA fights, 11 as a professional and 12 as an amateur. I really wanted to get Newsom's take on this fight. Newsom is locked away in some Turkish prison. No, he's actually in Turkey on vacation. But he would know all about this guy, Jack Shore. Our good friend BB Bomb, Brett Apley, is very high on Jack Shore. I will be placing a wager on Jack Shore to win by submission, knockout, or DQ, which is currently, I believe, at plus 125. I like him a lot here. I think he's well priced at 8.9K. Jack Shore.
Moving on. We got to go a little quick this week, guys. We got 13 fights in this card, which is fun for DK. Marc Diakiese, 8,500, taking on groovy Lando Vannata at 7,700. Line on this fight, Diakiese, minus 150. Comeback on Vannata is plus 140. For me, this is a close fight, a good fight that should be on the main card, and it's one where I'm picking the upset. I like Lando Vannata in a really close fight here. Variety of reasons for it, but Joe, you're up to start this one.
Yeah. So Diakiese has looked a lot better. One of our, he's relied in the past on pure athleticism versus technique, which has always concerned me, is that he was just a freak athlete. He did look really good in his last fight. Our good friend, who we really need to get on as a guest on these over the pond cards, is very high on Diakiese. Lando is what Lando is. I mean, when he came into the UFC and on a short notice fight and actually got Tony Ferguson in trouble, albeit briefly, and then head kicked McDessie, everybody's like, this is the next star. And then he just had like a series of draws, really kind of weird fights. He does have, I think, junior college D1 wrestling pedigree, which you don't see him use all that much. And he does tend to get a little tired. So I think if this fight gets out of the first 2 rounds, it could get a little sloppy. In the beginning of the week, I sort of viewed Lando as sort of a live dog in GPPs. I've sort of come around more to Diakiese. Obviously, his price is pretty attractive. Lando's, that is. So I'll have a few shares of him, but I'm going to pick Diakiese for the win.
Chris.
Yeah. This is a weird fight for me because this is the battle of the two guys I never picked to win a fight. I mean, obviously, I picked Lando for his last fight because it was the human.
Because you could have won that fight.
Yeah, it was the human takedown giver-upper in Marcus Mariano. But I think that this one is just as simple as, look, Joe mentioned the athleticism, and I think the length is just going to be a real problem here for Lando. Lando tends to have to close that range off, and he doesn't really have a guard, doesn't really block punches. So I like Diakiese to really use his length and power and speed to sort of just ding Lando up pretty much all fights. And unless Lando does do something like wrestle, which I don't expect, which I mean, it's not even 1,000% that he could out wrestle Diakiese, in my opinion. But unless he does that, like I sort of view these guys as wanting to do the same things, sort of, but just Diakiese being a little better. Lando is going to want to get his kicking game going. I like Diakiese's kicking game better, and I like Diakiese's defensive game better. So, yeah, I think that Lando's probably going to have some moments in this fight just because of his ability to know how to bring the chaos. But I just like Diakiese much better as a overall fighter, and he's the pick to win.
Moving on, we have Macy Chiasson, 9,400, taking on Lina Länsberg at 6,800. Chiasson, big favorite. The hell's the line at now? It's big. It is minus 400. Come back on Länsberg plus 355. Chiasson, the hot prospect. Länsberg pulled off a big upset last time out against Mambad Tanya Evinger. Chris, who do you have in this one?
So that fight against Evinger was really one of the great shocks of my picking career. I never would have thought in a million years that Tanya Evinger could lose to Lina Länsberg, just because I thought the fight was such a ready-made stylistic wonder for Tanya Evinger, and she did have her back at one point and couldn't finish. So I think that speaks to Evinger probably being over the hill more so than it does any improvement in Länsberg's game. Lina Länsberg is, she's basically a Thai fighter who fights MMA. She wants to get you against the cage and land elbows. That's basically all she wants to do. I think that Chiasson is big enough and good enough in the grappling that this is going to be what the Tanya Evinger fight would have looked like 5 years ago. I say that pretty confidently, that I think Chiasson probably subs her out here. I mean, she'll be better standing too, and she'll be able to use her length and range. But I think this fight probably makes its way to the floor, and I think Chiasson pulls off the sub. So that's what I'm going to go with here.
Joe.
Yeah, I'll keep this simple. I mean, this is obviously a regional fight for Länsberg. I mean, the matchup really doesn't make a ton of sense. Although I guess if you view Länsberg as a gatekeeper, it does. She probably doesn't view herself that way. Chiasson is definitely has a trajectory at 135 to kind of move up. I don't know that this fight does a whole lot for her in terms of that. So I'm guessing that the UFC put this together because Länsberg is located in the same region as Copenhagen. So Chiasson, I'd like to see her get it done by finish. I believe Chiasson to win by finish is pretty attractive. What is that? It's like it's even money, so it's plus 100. So those are pretty decent odds. At least on DK Sportsbook for Chiasson to win by finish. Actually, even better than Jack Shore.
All right, moving on. We have Brandon Davis, 8,700, taking on Giga Chikadze at 7,500. Line in this fight, Brandon Davis is the favorite at the hell is it? Again, best fight picks, just the order, or best fight odds. The order is just all jammed up this week. So could be a couple more delays, guys. Minus 160. Giga plus 150. Why the bleep and bleep is Giga Chikadze in the UFC? That's how I'm going to throw this out to you, Joe. Like, what's up here?
He's at Kings. He lost, I believe, the third round on the Dana White Contender Series. Is that correct? I believe it is. And he is a Kings MMA fighter. Honestly, I know some people, some of our Twitter MMA peeps that have some money on this guy to win. Our good friend Rockstar Z is got some units or a unit on this guy to win. So
that's insanity.
Yeah, I don't think it's that crazy. I mean, he's priced right. It's likely going like Davis's strength is stand up. I don't know that it's that big. Look, he's a decent looking fighter. Kings MMA, good camp. He's got a submission. He's got a submission win. He's got a knockout win. I don't know, man. Look, Davis is a little too expensive as a DraftKings play. I'm going to go for the upset here. Davis is tough. Don't get me wrong. Mississippi Mean, Alan Belcher. We need to look at some fighters at that lower tier of pricing. Kind of trust my boy Rockstar Z. It's not a very informed opinion. I will say that. I'm going off of camp and a little bit of pedigree. I don't think he's the greatest fighter in the world. Making your UFC debut at 31 is typically not a good sign. But I'm going to give him a shot here. In any case, I don't think he gets finished. So he could have a reasonable floor, but I will pick him for the upset.
So here's going to be your problem, Joe. If Brandon Davis is any kind of smart, which is the big issue, admittedly, he shoots a takedown, Giga's screwed. Giga, from what I saw, no ground game.
That's true.
Dangerous on the feet, but Davis is tough as hell. The problem is I'm afraid Davis is going to go on Mississippi Mean and strike with him. And even then, like, Giga, I'm surprised you didn't throw out, which means I don't think you know it. Giga's wins, those guys have a combined record of something like, I think it's like 2-60 or something ridiculous like that.
Isn't that the other guy, Mohadi, that has that bad?
No, I think it's Giga. I'm going to look it up while we're doing it. You know what? You could be right, but I thought it was Giga Chikadze, who is the ultimate can crusher. So
yeah, you're right, dude. Well, one of the guys he fought had a record of 2-32. Yeah. So that's going to
still not a lot of wins.
That's going to skew those results.
But in general,
0-4. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
But if Davis stands and trades, like, I guess, but
okay, dude. You know what? I'm changing my pick. Sorry, Z.
No,
I am. I'm changing my pick. I'm going with Davis.
It shouldn't be allowed.
I don't love it as a DraftKings play, but I'm going. You brought me back, Sean. I'm going to go with Davis here.
Now
we'll didn't say that much.
We'll see if I said a lot.
You said enough. I am getting into some. Wow, 1-11, 2-32. Yeah.
And takedown defense and just.
Okay.
Just take that. All right. Well, I'm going to talk first.
Oh, you're going to pick Giga? Here we go.
I know. I
bring Joe back.
Say that.
I wonder if Z was just looking at his camp pedigree. I don't know.
Maybe, or just doesn't like Brandon Davis.
Could be.
I can't get behind it. But, I've been wrong before. I don't see it here. Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think it's that crazy either. And I was gonna side with Joe on that, but since he's flipped, I guess I'm alone in that department now.
And that's the way we like it.
Yeah, that's the only road I've ever known there, Sean. But I do think the Giga. Look, from what I've seen from his Contender Series fight, his takedown defense is not awful, and Brandon Davis is not a great wrestler. He can be a willing wrestler, and so the thing I would point to, if you're wondering if Brandon Davis is going to wrestle, when Randy Costa started troubling him with his kicking game, And he did. Brandon Davis ate a couple of clean head kicks in that fight. He took him down, subbed him with a rear naked chokes that didn't even require him getting hooks in, and that was the fight. That could happen here. I think that Giga is better defensively, both as a wrestler and as a jiu-jitsu player, than somebody like Randy Costa. The thing about the record is a decent point, although that can inform your decision, but I wouldn't. That's not like the whole ball game for me, because as we always say, you can only fight the guys they put in front of you, right? So, I mean, I don't know. I expect Costa. I said Costa. I expect Giga to have moments of success in this fight on the feet in the same way that Costa did. He's a sharp kickboxer. In fact, it's easier to find his glory kickboxing fights than it is his MMA fights. You have to kind of dig for the latter there, but yeah, he's a sharp kickboxer. He keeps his range well. He seems like a decent defensive fighter to me. Again, it depends on two things: A, whether Brendan Davis will wrestle, and B, whether he can get him to the ground. Because while Davis is a willing wrestler, it's not that he's a great one. So I don't think the pick is crazy. I'm ultimately picking Brandon Davis because I think the pressure and the pace is just going to wear on him, and it's going to take away some of that kicking game that he likes so much. And with the wrestling in the back pocket, I just think it's going to be too much for a debut. But can Giga find a head kick knockout here? I think he can. The problem is that Davis is tough, and over 3 rounds, I think it'll be hard to sustain it without him showing that he can stuff some wrestling. So he's going to be tested for sure, but my pick is going to be Brandon Davis.
Moving on, Ismail Naurdiev, 9,000, taking on Siyar Bahadurzada at 7,200. Line on this fight, Naurdiev minus 210. Comeback on Bahadurzada is plus 190. Ismail Naurdiev, the hype train after his UFC debut, got derailed last fight out. Made me a little bit of money there. Thank you, Chance Rencounter. And he's back here against the aging Siyar Bahadurzada. So I'm going to say, just based on this fight and all the options we have at 9,000 and above on DraftKings, 100% F Naurdiev. If he takes my money, it is what it is. The question is, how live is Siyar Bahadurzada in this fight? For me, I'm picking Naurdiev to win, but Bahadurzada, I have plenty of him in GPP because I think if he wins, it's because he landed a big power shot against Naurdiev. Who's up to start this one? I think it's Chris. Break it down.
Didn't I finish the last one?
Yeah, so you start the next one.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot how it works. Okay, so, yeah, I agree that Naurdiev probably wins this. I think that, the problem with Bahadurzada, he's a good fighter against lower level fighters who I guess you could consider Naurdiev that, but because all he wants to do is pressure and throw big shots. But the problem is the shots that he throws are very loopy and windy, and he can get countered pretty easily. I think Naurdiev can do some of that. I also think because of that pressure, he could land a big shot, but Naurdiev is going to be way more athletic here and looking for finishes. He can wrestle a little bit. He can grapple. I mean, the only reason that Siyar Bahadurzada, we have seen him land takedowns before. We saw him do a little bit of that in the Curtis Millender fight. But the only reason Chance Rencounter out-grappled him was because he's just so long and sort of lanky that I don't think that
and the gas tank is an
Naurdiev dealt with it. Yeah, the gas tank too. But I mean, I think at the very end of that fight, you can make an argument that Naurdiev's gas tank was better than Rencounter's was. It was just that he couldn't keep Rencounter off of him. But yeah, I think that Bahadurzada is live to a knockout too. The other thing I would say is Bahadurzada is like legendarily tough. I mean, in that Millender fight, like I thought he was finished for sure in the 3rd round. He was getting hit with hard shots after he got stunned with hard shots, and he still was able to shoot a takedown, land it, and save himself there. So at 9,000, it might be a little tough to find value there. So for GPP, I think it's a dog or pass, but for cash, I think I would go Naurdiev here.
Joe.
Yeah, so going back to the upset, Brandon Thatch is a big underdog. The problem with Siyar is that he has been hurt a lot. So even though he is, in fact, 35 years old, he really hasn't had a lot of fights, over the course of the past few years. He's fought twice in 2018, once in 2017, once in 2016, and then he had 3 years off prior to that. So, we're talking since 2013, he's only had 4 fights in 6 years. So, yeah, he's 35 years old. Also, I want to say about 2 years ago, out of all the fighters who had been to the PI in Las Vegas, Siyar, at any weight class, Siyar had the fastest hands, right? So he's definitely got hand speed. He hits hard. He's got some wrestling in his back pocket. The Austrian Wonder Boy here, who's actually Russian, but is called the Austrian Wonder Boy. This guy he's only 23. He's 2 years removed from losing to a guy named Ismail de Jesus, who was 37 years old at the time. So yeah, he's an improving fighter. I think Rencounter actually exposed him a little bit, and I don't want to accuse Prazeres as maybe taking the fight too lightly, but Prazeres was on quite a win streak himself when he was coming into that fight. Got dominated. May have taken the fight too lightly. I think Siyar's live here. I love his price. Definitely GPP or bust for Siyar. I don't know if I would play him in cash.
The thing is, he's super cheap. He other than if you want to stack, where I would dumpster dive for cash.
Yeah, you know what? You might be right. I mean, and his floor isn't horrible. I mean, I think he had 40 points in that loss against Melander. And to Chris's point, he really did get lit up. He got really pissed too because he was, he finally got his takedown game going late. I think if he could use his striking, to get takedowns, I don't expect, at least early on in the fight, he'll be able to hold the Austrian Wonder Boy down, but maybe, steal around and get a close decision. So I'm actually going to go with the upset here. I'm going to pick Siyar. I like him more on DraftKings than I do, especially considering the higher end options, which means that, the Wonder Boy might actually be low owned. So could be worth a play there in mass entry. But I will take Siyar for the upset here.
Moving on, let's take a look at Makhmud Muradov, 8,600, taking on Alessio Di Chirico at 7,600. Muradov minus 150. Come back on Di Chirico plus 140. To me, these are two really similar fighters, and Muradov is just a little better everywhere. But a close fight, one making their UFC debut. Joe, who you got?
So this is a fight where I actually do like Chirico in cash. He has been in the UFC for a while. He had a decision loss against Kevin Holland. He had a split decision win against the Cuban Missile Crisis. Knocked out Bambuse, who's no longer in the UFC. Lost Eric Spicely, beat the Soldier Boy, and then Serbian Steel. That was a very close fight. Many people thought he got that decision. I kind of like him here to keep it close. I believe the point I was trying to make earlier is that the record of Makhmud, I guess the record of his opponents is quite bad. Maybe even worse than what we saw for Chikadze. So am I going to go with another upset here? I'm going to say that this is a close decision fight, and until I see this guy get a fight under his belt, I'm going to go with the Italian fighter in Di Chirico, and I may even like him a bit more. And I know why I wasn't leaning initially towards Siyar in cash. I might like this guy a bit more in cash. I think he's 7.4?
I believe so.
Okay, yeah. So I'm going to go with the upset with Di Chirico. Sean's points are well taken, but I think he also could have a decent floor in cash at 7 points.
By the way.
Oh, 7.6. Okay, yeah, he's 400 price differential. We'll talk about it later, but I hate the stack this week, and not for a recency bias of what happened last week, but I'm going to pick Di Chirico for upset.
Chris.
Yeah, it's funny. The way that I framed this fight was exactly what you said at the outset there, Sean. I think they're similar fighters, but I think that Name blanking.
Muradov.
Muradov, thank you. Muradov does everything a little better. He's a little bit better of a wrestler. He's definitely a better grappler, I would say, and I think he's a better, more athletic kickboxer. I like his combination work better. I like that he finishes his combination with kicks. Chirico is more of like a one shot counter striker. He'll do a little bit of offensive leg kicking himself, but not a very action fighter, not a very come forward offensive fighter. And I just like Muradov, as I say, to be a little better everywhere. I just don't see where Chirico beats him here. I don't see where he has a clear advantage, and so for that reason, I'll take Maduro in what's probably going to be kind of a boring decision, but probably a decisive one.
Moving on, we have a good GPP fight in John Phillips. He's the dog at 8,000, taking on Alen Amedovski at 8,200. Amedovski, the favorite, minus 125. Come back on the white Mike Tyson. John Phillips is plus 115. Both guys, big power. John Phillips can't stop a takedown. People, I think, are getting hung up on that Krzysztof Jotko dominated Amedovski in his UFC debut. Jotko is not John Phillips. I guess you can say close fight. I am finding myself, I think, a little alone. I think most people think it's a coin flip, and I get Phillips has big fight-changing power, and I'll be hedging quite a bit. This is a fight I will hedge on, but I like Amedovski a bit here. I think he's got just as big a power as Phillips and the path to victory through takedowns if he wants it. So give me Amedovski in a crucial mid-range fight. Chris, I assume that means you're all in on John Phillips?
No, God, no. Look, John Phillips, I looked at basically one thing at this fight. I was like, okay, in that fight with Jotko, did Amedovski show me some footwork? Did he show me some side-to-side movement that he can get off the cage? Oh, he did? Okay, I'm picking Amedovski. That was literally my thought process. That's how Jack Marshman beat him, because he doesn't cut off the cage at all. And Jack Marshman, of all people, was able to just dance around him and do just enough for a win. People call that a robbery, but it was close enough that it wasn't a robbery.
Phillips screwed himself and me out of a ton of money.
Well, yeah, because he didn't follow him down.
How do you get that knockdown and just dance around for 2.5 rounds?
Yeah,
that was awful.
Well, that's the other thing is that, I mean, he doesn't really he's not an MMA fighter. He's SBG has a lot of these guys that are just basically like barroom brawlers. John Phillips, Charlie Ward. I think there's somebody else that I'm missing. So he falls into that mode of he's just gonna walk forward and try to cut you off and throw big hooks at you. And if one connects, you're gonna go to sleep for sure. But could that happen? Of course it could. But I'm just not gonna bet on it. I just think that Amedovski can keep the range well enough while landing his own strikes. And he's a bit of an offensive wrestler as well, which he could also use. So, yeah, my pick here is Amedovski. I mean, but unless there's somebody in the UFC who's just coming in who is really raw, I probably would never pick John Phillips to win a fight, and that record is going to endure here. My pick is Amedovski.
Joe.
Yeah, I mean, this kind of is who cares? I don't have a strong take on this.
For GPP, you have to care.
Yeah, I guess. I'll probably have however much exposure I'm going to have to the fight. I'll probably have equal shares of both. I don't really have a strong lean either way. I was not impressed with the white Mike Tyson's fight against Marshman, who I essentially thought was retired at the point he took the fight. So let me go with Amedovski here, but it's to me, it's, whatever you're going to use in this fight, percentage-wise, just divide it by 2.
Moving on, we have Nicolas Dalby. He's the dog, 7,400. Favorite is Alex Cowboy Oliveira at 8,800. Line on this fight, Oliveira, minus 135. Dalby's got a little bit of odds value here, plus 125. Dalby, second stint in the UFC, has a draw against Darren Till, a win over Alessio Zaleski dos Santos. Those are no joke. Lost 2 fights, got bounced. the UFC, is back here in his hometown. My issue with him here is he's very, very hittable. And that's a problem against Oliveira, who has big power. But if he survives, Oliveira fades. And Dalby is durable and tough and could take advantage of it. I'm picking Oliveira to win. Dalby's got kind of a scary floor, honestly. But I like him in GPPs because he's cheap. And there's less options in his range than there is up by Oliveira, who there's all kinds of options. So just by default, even though I like Oliveira, I'm going to have way more Nicolas Dalby and hoping the hometown guy comes through. And God, I just wish he wasn't so hittable. Joe.
It's funny because I do think that Dalby is going to be a very popular dog.
Yep.
The fact that he actually lost the fight, since he was bounced from the UFC, that worries me a little bit. That split decision against Darren Till, I think Till was hurt in that fight, actually. Those are the days when I was actually a fan of Darren Till, before I realized what a sleazebag he was. I like Cowboy Oliveira as well. I mean, I think what's interesting about Cowboy Oliveira is he has got the ability to be a slate breaker. He could, knock someone down 3 times in a round and get a really nice win. However, to Sean's point, he gasses horrifically as the fight goes long and puts himself in a position of being, finished himself. I mean, all you have to do is actually look at, the stat lines on Cowboy Oliveira, if you bear with me. He's an interesting fighter as hell. When he wins, he's pretty good. Pretty good of a DraftKings fighter. So if you take a look at his numbers here, you got him at okay. So Oliveira's DraftKings numbers are he got 102 against Condit at 8.7K, 94 against Petrosoli at 9.3K. So that's 10x. Then he's coming off of 2 losses where he really didn't have much of a floor, 23 and 24 points. So this is a GPP fight only, as far as I see it. I would not be near this fight at all in cash. If you think
here's the problem with that, and I agree with you. But the odds value players are going to have this fight because Dalby is plus 125 at 7,400.
Well, you know what? Check that. Okay, maybe I'm going to rephrase that. Oliveira, you should not touch in cash.
Yep.
Dalby, I guess you could play in cash. There's going to be some odds value. He's a tough guy to finish. But if you like Alex Oliveira, like I do, you've got to pick him to win by finish. Like, I'd be really shocked if he won a decision. I really would be, because I see him gassing, and if he gasses, he's probably going to lose if it goes to decision. He's just not that kind of fighter. I mean, if you look at all his wins, I don't think he is. He's got 1 win by decision in his UFC career. It looks like. He lives or dies by the sword, which is why I wouldn't play him in cash. Dalby, I get it. There's odds value. He's 7 point. He's going to be a pretty popular fighter, but I'm going to pick Oliveira because I think he can get the finish in this fight. But I do see Dalby as live, so he probably is a solid cash play.
Chris, you in on this one yet? I don't think so.
No. I can understand your confusion because I did sneeze in the middle of it, and that was very.
That's all right.
Sorry, I didn't have time to hit the cough button there, guys. Sorry, but I agree with Sean that it really, it's hard to pick Cowboy Oliveira these days because it's like if he doesn't get that first or second round finish, it's tough. And one thing that people have to reconcile themselves with, if you're picking Oliveira, because invariably people say this every time he fights, why is he wrestling and grappling? He should be striking. He's going to wrestle and grapple, guys. So if you're gonna pick him, you got to get over that's just how he fights, whether he should or not. And the reason is just because he's a big, strong guy, and he likes to play from top position. So I mean, and that could even be helpful in DK, obviously, for takedowns and submission. But the upshot of that is that it gets him tired quicker. I think that Dalby he's going to be pushing forward here, and he does good body work, good combination work. So he's going to be somebody who could test that gas tank. He does a little bit of offensive wrestling as well. Although I really don't like anybody grappling with Cowboy Oliveira, at least in the first round, because he can just reverse. Even if you're a better grappler than he is, he can just reverse you by power. He turned himself around in Gunnar Nelson's triangle. If anybody, I mean, that still floors me that's a thing that happened. But for all his strengths, he does gas out. He does wrestle a bit too much. I'm gonna pick him here just because I think he can overwhelm Dalby. But if that doesn't happen, then yeah, obviously Dalby would be live to probably a finish as Oliveira's gas tank continues to go empty.
All right, moving on, we look at Michał Oleksiejczuk, 9,100, taking on Ovince Preux at 7,100. Oleksiejczuk, he's the favorite in this one, minus 240. Comeback on OSP, plus 220. There's every reason here to like Michał. My one concern is he's just a little undersized for light heavyweight, and that's always going to make me nervous in his fights. But Chris, what do you have for a breakdown?
Yeah, it's not an unfounded concern either. I mean, OSP is going to be the way bigger guy here. He could definitely put him to sleep with one of those head kicks. My problem with OSP, which is always a problem, but I think it's doubly in this fight, is that he spends a little bit too much time waiting on his opponent, especially if his opponent is an offensive-minded opponent who's going to come forward. The example I always use of this is OSP soundly losing a first round against I forget. I'm gonna look.
Corey Anderson?
No, not Corey Anderson. Pizao. Pizao. What's his actual name? Pizao.
Marcos Rogerio de Lima.
Marcos Rogerio de Lima. Thank you very much. Not just him scraping by, soundly losing the first round because Rogerio de Lima just decided to employ a kicking game. And OSP was just getting backed up consistently. And then second round, OSP catches a kick, lands the takedown, and gets the Von Preux choke, as I guess we call it now. But, so that's the problem with OSP. OSP is a guy who can be losing every second of a fight until he wins it, either by grappling or by one of those head kick knockouts like we saw with Corey Anderson. I think that Oleksiejczuk, I love his movement. As Sean said, he's undersized, but the trade-off there is he gets a lot of speed, and he will have it here against OSP. I think he's going to come forward. I think he's going to get his striking game going. It's a little risky for the reasons that I mentioned, but I like Oleksiejczuk, especially since we've seen OSP get tired a lot lately. For all those reasons, I like Oleksiejczuk to get this done.
Joe.
Yeah, so I don't think it's going to even be that hard. Read my lips. OSP should be 5-0. I'm sorry, 0-5 in his last 5 fights. He won 2 fights against fighters who demonstrated horrific fight IQ. Corey Anderson was winning 2-0 in the 3rd round. All he had to do was stay away or keep OSP in a clinch. He had 2 options, like keep him in a clinch or stay away, and he wins that fight. Even if he loses the 3rd round, he wins that fight. What does Corey Anderson do? He engages at range. Idiot. Loses that fight. Tyson Pedro has him rocked, and then decides to go down for a slam. Gets choked. Okay, so his only wins since 11/4/2017, aka his last 5 fights, have come against 2 fighters who have demonstrated horrific fight IQ. I love Oleksiejczuk in this spot. I like him to get the finish. OSP's time has come. He's 36 years old. He came into the UFC as a plus athlete. Never moved to a camp where he can learn anything. I mean, essentially, he trained out of the gym at the University of Tennessee and Knoxville Martial Arts Academy. If there was anyone who should have moved to a camp that could have taught him something, it's OSP. I mean, he's got as much as he can out of his athletic ability. And what happens when you have athletic ability and you get old? It diminishes, especially if you don't pick up any skills. So I love Oleksiejczuk here. It's my, favorite play on the slate. I like him to get the finish. On DK, his To win by any submission, DQ, or KO is minus 125. Unfortunately, I think he's going to be pretty popular. But I
disagree with you, Joe.
Really, I like him in cash and I like him in GPPs.
I don't think he's going to be that popular.
Well, I hope not. Then I love that.
I think you're going to get guys playing Hermanson, Chiasson, and Madsen.
Okay, let's go with that.
I know he's the cheapest, but I think people are going to look to pay up.
Okay,
it'll be interesting. We'll see who's right there. I don't see. Marco said Oleksiejczuk's going to be mega chalk.
I think so too.
I'm not getting that feeling, but
yeah, I don't know about that either.
I think Chiasson and Hermanson are going to soak up so much of that ownership, but we'll see.
Well, you know why it might be, because OSP, the attitude might be in the toilet even a little more, especially after he had dominant positions in that last fight against who was it? And the guy coming back, who just came back.
Not sure.
Why can't you guys ever help me out here? I'm on an island here, guys.
We like watching you struggle. Now, what were you saying?
I know that part, but
what were you saying, Chris?
Nikita Krylov.
Yeah.
So like he had Krylov's back in that fight. He was dominating the fight, and then he just got tired and lost. So I think that people are there might be some recency bias there to bolster that point. But yeah, especially OSP being sort of the finisher that he is when he wins. I don't really know that Oleksiejczuk is going to be that popular.
Yeah, I think he's going to come in. Somebody in chat guessed between 50 and 60. I don't think so, Marco. Somebody else said 40. I think he's going to be around 25 to 30.
Wow, that'd be great.
I don't think he's going to be not popular. I think he's going to be average, because I'm expecting Hermanson to be 65% plus. Like, I think he's the mega chalk on this card for guys talking about it in chat. But we'll save that for a little bit. We'll get to that fight, and let's move on to Khalil Roundtree Jr. 8,400 taking on Ivan Cuțelaba at 7,800. Khalil Roundtree, it's a pick'em fight now, minus 105 apiece. Some money's coming on Cuțelaba. GPP fight. Roundtree has got that, that new Thai base that kind of changed his style, and Cuțelaba is a friggin' wild man in there. Like, he's just going to push forward and throw bombs. That's what he does. So I expect this fight to be high scoring. Chris, who you got?
Yeah, well, we definitely saw a brand new Khalil Roundtree in his last fight. Just sort of streamlined everything and really showed off a nice, fast, fluid kicking game. Still had some of those winging shots, but also showed a couple of nice 1-2s. But my biggest thing here is that, listen, in a fight where he was dominating, there's a point in the beginning of that second round where Eryk Anders went for one shot, Khalil Roundtree defends it, and then takes a deep breath and looks at the clock. This guy still gets really tired. The reason that we didn't really see it is because he dominated the last fight. And even then, he was getting tired. And Ion Cuțelaba is a much different fighter. He's going to come forward with strikes, and then once he strikes, he's going to try to clinch you and throw knees at your head, and he's going to try to put you up against the fence. And it's just a much different, much more physical fight than Anders gave him, even though Anders should have been somebody to give him a physical fight, but wasn't. Now, Ion Cuțelaba is not perfect. He sometimes lunges into his strikes too much and leaves himself open for counters. I don't think that Khalil Roundtree is an accurate counterpuncher, but he is still a big puncher, so he can definitely catch Cuțelaba. And for the time that he spends on the outside, he can also eat the leg kicks that Anders was eating. But let's not forget that Ion Cuțelaba is going to be way quicker on the outside than Eryk Anders was. So I don't think he's just going to sit there and absorb leg kicks in the same way. I think that he's hittable, and Khalil Roundtree is still very athletic and fast and powerful. But my main source for the pick is that we're all so jacked up over what he did, and it was a great performance. But I still think the cardio issues are there. And this is the exact kind of guy to exploit it. So give me Ion Cuțelaba.
Joe.
Wow, you stole some of my thunder. I mean, earlier in the week, I was on Roundtree, and then I caught myself and said, recency bias, Joe, recency bias. Cuțelaba's foundation is Greco-Roman wrestling. He also happens to come from an area, Moldova, where the security guard escorts you to the parking lot, and you got to give him a ride back to the front door. It's everybody's tough where he comes from. I think he has the style where he's a wild, aggressive striker that he could use to set up takedowns. And I still have not seen, for all of his Thai training accolades, they typically don't train takedown defense in wrestling. It's not part of Muay Thai. So I do think that there's going to be opportunity for Cuțelaba to take him down even and grind on him a little bit. And Roundtree is overly muscular, which is why I feel he tires out as the fight gets late. So I advise playing this fight in GPPs for sure. It's getting to the point where at, I believe, 7.8K that you may even consider playing Cuțelaba in cash. I think he's got a fairly solid floor. I believe in his losses, he still scored like 40 points in his last 2 losses. So, I'm going to go with Cuțelaba here. I do say have shares of Roundtree and GPPs, but give me Cuțelaba.
Right, moving on, we have Gilbert Burns, 8,300, taking on Gunnar Nelson at 7,900. Burns is the favorite, minus 120 now. That's a little upsetting because I bet Gilbert Burns a little bit higher than that. So, damn. Gunnar Nelson, plus 110. My only concern about this fight is Gilbert Burns fought 5 weeks ago. Other than that, I think he's a more dangerous striker than Gunny. I think the jiu-jitsu is so close. I don't think that Gunnar's going to be able to dominate him down there, and Burns is incredibly dangerous. I think Nelson will be stronger and could control him. Like, I just see multiple paths for Gilbert Burns that I think I got minus 130. I thought that was a little bit too close. So I like Gilbert Burns quite a bit here. I don't see a lot of ways Gunnar Nelson wins this fight. Is he really going to submit Gilbert Burns? Is he going to control him for 3 rounds? The only thing is 5 weeks ago, maybe Gilbert Burns gasses out. Like that's what I got. How about you guys? Joe?
Okay, so this is one fight that I looked in quite a bit. Alex, shout out to Alex. Gracie Baja, New Hampshire. We'll see you in Boston, buddy. We had a bit of a back and forth, very friendly, of course, on this fight. He likes Burns like you do, and I think, Sean, that your take on it is pretty universal. However, I actually predicted this line would flip. I see this as a pick'em fight. If you look at Burns' fighting record, first of all, let's back up a little. I believe he started at welterweight, decided he couldn't hack it at welterweight, went down to lightweight. Now he's having a hard time making cuts, so he's going to come back at welterweight. He fought 5 weeks ago. Every time he's stepped up in competition, he's lost. Dan Hooker, Makhmud, one other guy. I don't have his record open in front of me, but he's lost every time he's stepped up in competition. Now, another interesting stat. On his wins, which, let's be honest, have not been exactly against a murderer's row of UFC fighters. His wins since 2015 have come against OBM, who's fallen off a cliff, Jason Sago, Dan Moret, Lukas Sawiecki, Mike Davis, and Oleksiejczuk Kunichenko. So he hasn't exactly been beating a murderer's row in his wins. Every fighter that he has a win against so far has either been cut from the UFC in their next fight, has lost, or hasn't fought yet. So your technical analysis is spot on. How is he going to win? I don't know. I mean, I just think he is a step up in competition. This fight is actually in his own backyard. It's not. I know he's not Danish, but it's a backyard fight. And this is, to your point, Burns is having fought 5 weeks ago. I'm gonna against all practical logic, I'm gonna go for the upset, and I'm gonna take Gunny Nelson. I will have a few shares of him at 7.9K. We'll also have some shares at Gilbert Burns. There are guys I like more at his price point, but actually, yeah, there's one or two guys I like better. But I'm gonna take the Gunner here.
Chris.
So as far as from a technical aspect, how is Gunnar Nelson win? What I keep coming back to is that while he is a dangerous striker, he's also not a very polished one, and he tends to get countered hard a lot. and Gunnar Nelson has that karate style where he can just do a quick strike and really floor him with a counter. We saw him do that to Alen Joban, and we've seen that happen to Gilbert Burns. Dan Moret actually did that in their fight. Dan Hooker did that in their fight, and Gilbert Burns wasn't still lucky enough to just get a takedown and win the fight that way. So that would be my main concern from a technical standpoint. But I'm picking Gilbert Burns too because I think that look, Sean, we're on the same side of this, but you said something here that kind of surprised me, which is that you think Gunnar Nelson's going to be stronger. I don't think we've ever.
No, I think Burns will be stronger.
Okay. So either I misheard that or you said it wrong. I'm going with the second one. But I think that yes, I think he's going to be stronger. I think he can get his takedown game working, and if he does, I think he can probably sub Gunnar Nelson out, if not just keep him occupied in the floor for long enough. Now that does raise questions about the gas tank. We did just see him, but this is a full camp as opposed to the other one that wasn't, correct?
Well, it's a full camp in the sense that it's 6 weeks from his last fight.
Right. Yeah, that's what I mean. So, I think that gives me more assurance than I think more so than the proximity to that fight is how much time he had for the camp, because it's not like he got hurt in that fight. I mean, he pretty much controlled the whole fight. With some bumps in the road here or there. So yeah, Gunnar Nelson is definitely live to like a counter shot, hurt him, and then finish him. That wouldn't surprise me at all. But I think that Gilbert Burns just has too much advantages in the grappling department, where Gunnar likes to make his money, and I think that that's going to lead to a Gilbert Burns victory here.
That's probably what's going to happen.
Moving on, Marc Madsen, co-main event, superstar, 9,500, taking on Danilo Belluardo at 6,700. I should do the line on this before I give my snappy intro. Madsen minus 675. Comeback on Belluardo is plus 550. Once you lose to Joel Alvarez, you suck. You're dead to me. Give me Madsen to finish off this cupcake win handed to him in his UFC debut. Belluardo can't stop a takedown. That's what Madsen does. That's what they give out Olympic gold medals for. Give me Madsen. It's just a price issue. Chris?
Yeah, that's probably right. Belluardo just doesn't strike me as somebody who's going to be a good fighter at this level. Backs himself up perpetually, and Madsen just looks like every high level wrestler, green MMA fighter you've ever seen. Throw big power shots to try to back you up, and then get my grappling game going. Belluardo was reversed almost in mount by Alvarez, yeah, and in his last fight and got subbed there. I'm not even 100% sure he would have the advantage on the ground from a submission grappling perspective. But I think, yeah, for a guy who backs himself up too much against the guy who all he wants to do is back you up, I think that this is a pretty much tailor-made fight for Madsen, and I'm picking him to get the win.
Joe.
Yeah, 35 years old, making his UFC debut, 3 times Olympian, has no MMA skills at all. His last win was against a fighter named Patrick Nielsen, who was making his MMA debut. He was a boxer prior to that. So he does one thing. He does it exceptionally well. 9.5K, I just don't know if he's going to know what to do once he gets him down. It's going to be hard for me to get a lot of shares of him just because there are other people who I think have more upside in that upper tier. I'm going to go ahead and pick Madsen to get the win, but I'll probably be relatively low exposed to him in mass entry, much safer cash play, although you're going to get stuck with someone or two in the real lower end if you're going to go with them. So I'll pick Madsen to win, but I just don't think he's a great DraftKings play.
Main event time. Jack Hermanson, 9,200, taking on Jared Cannonier at 7,000. Hermanson is minus 260. Comeback on Cannonier is plus 240. kill a gorilla, back-to-back finishes, if you will, over David Branch and Anderson Silva, who was looking just fine in the Silva fight before that, Silva's leg gave out again. Look, Hermansson, this fight fits him well. Takedown Cannonier, heavy ground and pound. Cannonier probably won't be able to get back up. That's how this fight should go. Cannonier live to the big power punch has made tons of improvement since he was a full-time air traffic controller when he entered the UFC. He's made the most of his opportunity. He's a top 10 guy now. But give me Hermansson. Love it. Don't think you need to stack because I don't see Cannonier able to get back up. So all the Hermansson in this one. Chris.
Yeah, I basically agree. I just think I liked Jared Cannonier when he first came in. Problem is, of course, that he can't get back up, and I actually think his defensive boxing has kind of actually slipped a little bit, oddly enough. Even though he has become a full-time fighter now, I actually think he's a little more hittable now than he has been in the past. But his boxing is still good. He caught David Branch with a counter shot to finish that fight. Branch was really tired at that point. Even so, I just think that Hermansson is going to just be too much for him everywhere. He's going to be overwhelming in the striking department unless Cannonier catches him with a counter, which he could. And if not, he's going to just be so heavy on top. He's a really big guy in there. He's obviously the better grappler. I just like him to sort of dictate where this fight takes place. And even if Cannonier is strictly the better boxer, I just don't think it's going to matter because I think that Hermansson's length and kicking game and pressure and ability to just take the fight where he wants it is going to just win the day here. So, yeah, would like to give a more nuanced analysis of a main event, but as I said, it's not really a main event I love too much anyway. So, yeah, I'm pretty plainly going with Jack Hermansson here.
Joe.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on Hermansson as well. I mean, Cannonier has got a puncher's chance. He did look good at middleweight, but he beat Anderson Silva, who, like you said, his leg gave out. David Branch, who's essentially through after popping from multiple steroids. He was exposed badly. I think they want Hermansson to win here. This is a fight that he's not a local per se, but it's in his backyard. He actually asked to be on this slate. I agree with Sean that I don't think this is a great fight to stack because Cannonier might not be able to get up once he gets taken down, which could make his floor very, very low. I think Hermansson's going to be incredibly popular. I do give Cannonier a puncher's chance. I would have a few percentage points of him in mass entry, depending on how many lineups you're going to play. But give me Hermansson here.
All right, guys, that's it for the fight-by-fight breakdown. Everybody in chat, let's hit up the hot takes for this card. Hot takes for UFC Copenhagen. Anybody got one ready?
Yeah, I do. I have one. So people have asked me, not that I've been overtly successful with them, but people have asked me for my parlays. So here is a parlay that I just bet 100 American on. It is a 3-fighter by finish parlay. Jack Shore to win by finish.
Love it.
Chiasson to win by finish.
Like it.
And Michał Omlachek to win by finish. That will pay a minimum of 7-1. So I've got 100 on that.
That is, I like that bet too. Chris, you got one ready?
Yeah, Oleksiejczuk is your most dangerous one. I know you don't see that, but
right. No, I get it.
And anyway, no, it's not bad. But as I often say, I let your reactions dictate my hot takes, and this one will be no different. So Noel Hernandez knocks out Jack Shore.
That is insanity. But okay.
Wow.
I'll give mine before I go into the chat here. Let me count up real quick. Let's see. We'll see what I'm counting. Somebody in chat has the same idea as me. We'll see what I come up with.
Wow, Bilardo wins via knockout.
Yeah, I'll get
as Jack Shore. I mean, we're talking about guys that aren't in the UFC yet. So I mean, there is no lock.
Yeah, but dude, with Jack Shore, we're talking about a guy that's had 24 MMA fights. I mean,
I got a really hot take.
And he's the Cage Warriors champion at bantamweight, which is a good promotion.
You guys ready?
Yeah.
Because I think this is a good one. We are on the precipice of the highest scoring DraftKings card in history. I think every single fight ends in a finish.
Wow.
Oh my
We need
god.
13 finishes.
Whew.
Yeah, that's but I
And
mean,
the
look.
only ones I'm a little worried about going out in the sledge are Muradov, Chirico, and that's honestly really it. That's my most dangerous fight, I think.
I would say, well, Diakiese, Vannata, I mean, they're crazy, but nobody really finishes those guys.
We'll see. So, but the hot take for a reason, guys. So that's what I got. Tyler Lee, I did see as I was counting, he typed 10 finishes on the card for him. MMA KO, Belluardo wins via knockout. Dude, that would be insane, but it would continue the trend of the highest price fighter on the card losing.
Yeah, really.
Oh, Nonetheless, get the hell out of here. John Phillips by submission.
I wasn't even going to read that one. It doesn't count if you're not serious about it.
Come on now.
Yeah.
No, Nan is probably serious. I mean, come on.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, that is one tasty Indian bread dish right there. Wow.
So that's what we got for UFC Copenhagen, guys. Thanks everybody in chat for joining us. Rotowire.com/free 10-day free trial to all their premium content. No credit card required. Subscribe to this podcast on YouTube. It is just go to Rotowire, like, comment, subscribe. Hit us up on Twitter. Tweet the world. Tweet SiriusXM. Tweet at Fight Nation. We need to be on that channel every week. There's no reason
we do.
Shouldn't be. So everybody, I release the hounds upon you. Follow all of us on Twitter. You guys can probably see it there. Subscribe on iTunes, RotoWire MMA. Good luck in your contest. We will see you next week.
Word.
Mm.